We rejoin Troy Smith, Public Lands Manager at Byron Walker Wildlife Area in Kansas, as he discusses quail management techniques in Part 2.
The structure of your disc strips or your brood habitat is important. We want 40% bare ground on average. We want a high population of broadleaf plants, and we want it right adjacent to the nesting cover, so those broods don't have to move far to get in and start eating. This is the contents of a quail crop from Byron Walker Wildlife Area. As you can see, it's a mixture of seeds and insects. Predominant seeds in this mix are sunflower, western ragweed, deer vetch, and woolly croton. When managing nesting habitat for quail, the research has shown as few as 250 clumps of warm season clump grass, like this little blue stem clump right here, will provide adequate nesting cover for quail during a year. When managing nesting habitat for quail, the research has shown as few as 250 clumps of warm season clump grass, like this little blue stem clump right here, will provide adequate nesting. One of the habitats that quail need is escape cover. In order to get away from predators and protect themselves, they've got to get into some kind of cover where they're not susceptible to either mammalian or avian predators. And the sandhill plum that we have here is one of the excellent choices for this part of Kansas. It grows 3 or 4 feet in height. It's prickly, so it's hard on predators if they're trying to get through it to quail. And yet it's open at ground level where quail live, and they can scurry through it and get buried into the denser center of the area. It also provides thermal cover during the summer when things get so hot that quail have to cool themselves. They can get into the plum thickets, find shade, and find a microclimate that isn't as harsh as out there in the open sun. Eastern red cedar rows provide both good habitat and bad habitat for quail. The 1 year in 10 when we get severe blizzards in Kansas, they're the first place to melt off, and they provide the best wind protection for the quail, and quail will use them significantly during that storm. And as the snow melts off, the first place to melt is right around this dark green cover. It picks up solar rays, generates heat. We've done a lot of work here on Byron Walker taking care of the feral cedars out in our grasslands. As those cedars escape by seed and start up in the grasslands, they start becoming a harbor for predators. And over time, that can be a significant impact on your population. So we've done a lot of work cutting cedars out in the grasslands, and we just leave the carcass lay. And then it becomes a brush pile that quail can use as escape cover. And it's more of a benefit than if we'd have left it as a green growing cedar. 4,600 acres sounds like a large area, but actually from quail perspective, it's not that large. We have a problem here at Byron Walker Wildlife Area where we have easy access with Highway 54 cutting us in half, that we probably get overhunted every year. As a result, our population is suppressed, and will be so until we do some kind of controls in our hunting. What we see from that is a lower population than possibly adequate cover on surrounding acres. We support probably 400 to 700 quail on this area, and it fluctuates over time as hunting pressure goes up and down. Last year was a good year. Hunters took 236 quail on Byron Walker Wildlife Area, up from 74 the previous year. What we see is a cyclic type habitat and cyclic type population. And as hunters find out we have a good population, they move in and overhunt the population, and it goes down. After a few years, the hunters go somewhere else because they're not as successful. And subsequent to them moving to a new area, we rebuild a population and we go through the cycle again. Good quail hunters know good quail habitat, and they're productive in it. I had a gentleman this year from North Carolina that I checked at 10:30 in the morning, and he'd already moved 4 coveys, had 6 birds in the bag, and was headed back to the motel room satisfied.
Frequently we have guys from out of state that come in and take limits even in January. It's a very hard hit area, and so the quail do get educated and become harder to take, but it is capable or possible to take a limit in late season. The quail here took a big jump in this last season. We more than tripled the take over the previous year. Some of the management practices we've been using finally come to bear. We finally had a good production year that let us use the habitat we've been creating. We've been pretty productive with some tree control measures we've been using out in the grasslands, as well as some forward production type work with annual disking out in the grassland, and also with our regular normal burning practices. We've tried to keep a 3 to 5 year burning rotation out on the area, and that lets us keep the habitat in a condition so when we do have a good production year, we can take the best advantage of it. Our harvest numbers were up significantly this year. We killed 236 quail, up from last year's 74 birds. That's a significant increase in just 1 year's time. If we can link 2 production years in a row, we should make additional improvements of next year.
On Byron Walker, we manage for the hunters that come use the area, but we also try to provide a reference for local landowners that want to manage for quail. They have the opportunity to come on our acreage, look at what we do for management practices, and emulate it on their own acres to provide benefits for their own families to come hunt quail.